NAV, net asset value. The net asset value of any mutual fund scheme, the net asset value of any mutual fund scheme is the current value of its all assets net of its liabilities. Suppose the current value of all assets of a mutual fund scheme is rupees 100 million, liabilities rupees 5 million. The net asset value of mutual fund scheme rupees 95 million. The net assets value of any mutual fund scheme is the current value of its all assets net of its liabilities. Dividing this amount by the number of outstanding units of the scheme, we get NAV per unit. Let me once again explain you. The net asset value of any mutual fund scheme is the current value of its all assets net of its liabilities. Suppose the current value of all assets of a mutual fund scheme is rupees 100 million, liabilities rupees 5 million. So the net asset value of the scheme is rupees 95 million. If we divide this amount by number of outstanding units, we will get NAV per unit. NAV per unit represents the amount which the holder of one unit will get if the scheme is dissolved or liquidated. Suppose I am holding 1 unit of a mutual fund scheme. The scheme is liquidated or dissolved. Whatever amount I will get, that is known as NAV per unit. NAV per unit represents the amount which the holder of 1 unit will get if the scheme is dissolved or liquidated. But for its calculation, forced or distress sale is not assumed. Moreover, the liquidation or dissolution costs are not considered. NAV per unit is generally called as NAV, ignoring the phase per unit. So when we refer NAV, we mean NAV per unit. NAV of a fund scheme is equal to number 1, market value of traded and listed securities. Number 2, estimated value of 1, non-traded listed securities, and number 2, unlisted securities. So we take market value of traded and listed securities, we take estimated value of non-traded listed securities, we take estimated value of unlisted securities, we take liquid assets and cash, we take accrued dividend and interest incomes, and we take liabilities towards accrued expenses, and finally we consider other liabilities. NAV of a fund scheme is equal to number 1, market value of traded and listed securities. We will take market value of all such securities which are regularly traded, which are listed in the stock exchange, and they are being traded. Then we take estimated value of non-traded listed securities. By non-traded listed securities, we mean such securities which are listed in the stock exchange, but in past 60 days on the date of valuation, past 60 days of the date of valuation, no trading has been done. So these are listed, but they are not being traded. By unlisted securities, we mean the securities which are not unlisted. So we take market value of traded and listed securities, estimated value of non-traded listed securities, estimated value of unlisted securities, values of liquid assets and cash, then we take accrued dividend and interest. Out of the total of these items, we deduct liabilities towards accrued expenses and we also deduct other liabilities. The most important part of calculation of NAV is valuation of non-traded listed securities and unlisted securities. Non-traded listed security is a security which, though listed, has not been traded in any stock exchange for a period of 60 days prior to the valuation date. For valuation of such securities, the following principles should be used. Friends, we are going to discuss the principles for valuation of unlisted securities and also listed but not traded securities. Our discussion is to be divided into two parts. Number 1, equity shares, and number 2, debentures. Equity shares should be valued either on the basis of earnings, that is EPS, or in combination with net assets value. Equity shares should be valued either on the basis of earnings or in combination with net assets value. Value of equity shares on the basis of earnings is equal to EPS upon KE. Suppose we have to find the value of XYZ Limited shares. These shares are unlisted. We shall find their EPS. We will estimate KE. So value of share will be EPS divided by estimated KE, where KE is equal to EPS upon market price. How to estimate the KE? For this purpose, we find KE, that is EPS upon market price, of some proxy company. Proxy company means some similar listed and traded company. The KE of the company, the securities of which are to be valued, is taken slightly higher than KE of the proxy company. Suppose KE of the proxy company is 10%. Then KE of the company under our consideration may be taken slightly higher, say 11%. For example, equity shares of X Limited is non-traded listed security. To find its value, we find some similar company. Suppose Y Limited is a similar listed and traded company, that is Y Limited is a proxy company. Suppose KE of Y is 9%. KE of X Limited may be taken slightly on higher side, say 10%. Now suppose the EPS of X Limited is rupees 20. EPS of X Limited is rupees 20. X Limited is a company, the shares of which are to be valued by us. So the value may be taken as EPS upon KE. EPS is 20, KE is 10, so the value may be taken at rupees 200. By taking the KE towards higher side, the share has been valued towards lower side. The value of the share of X Limited should be taken towards lower side, as this share is not regularly traded and hence it lacks liquidity. Debt instruments should be valued on the basis of adjusted YTM of comparable security. Suppose we have to find the value of non-traded debenture of X Limited. The proxy security is debenture of Y Limited. The YTM of Y Limited debenture is 9%. The YTM of debenture of X Limited may be taken slightly towards higher side, say 10%. Now we can find the value of debenture of X Limited by discounting its cash flows by 10%. By taking the YTM towards higher side, the debenture has been valued towards lower side. The value of debenture of X Limited should be taken towards lower side, as this debenture is not regularly traded and hence it lacks liquidity. Friends, let me explain you all these points with the help of a question. Question number 5.1. Please refer to the chapter Mutual Funds of the textbook. In this question, we have to find the NAV of a mutual fund scheme. The key point of the question is calculation of values of unlisted shares and listed but not traded debentures. Finding the value of unlisted equity shares of ABC, EPS of such share is rupees 10. So what shall be the value? The value shall be actual EPS of ABC divided by estimated KE. Value of equity share of ABC will be actual EPS of ABC, that is rupees 10, divided by estimated KE. PE is equal to market price per share upon earning per share. Earning price ratio is equal to earning per share upon market price per share, that is KE. Please see this relation carefully. It's a very important relation. P is equal to market price per share upon earning per share, and earning price ratio is equal to EPS upon market price per share. In price earning ratio, market price per share is in numerator. In earning price ratio, it is in denominator. In P ratio, EPS is in denominator. In EP ratio, it is in numerator. So can we say that P is equal to 1 upon EP ratio, or EP ratio is equal to 1 upon P ratio. KE is equal to EPS upon market price per share. KE is equal to 1 upon price earning ratio. KE is equal to 1 upon price earning ratio. So PE of similar company is 12%. EP ratio of similar company is 1 upon 12, that is 0.0833. That is cost of equity of proxy company is 0.0833. This is the cost of equity of the proxy company. Cost of equity of this company may be taken slightly on higher side. By taking the cost of equity slightly on higher side, we shall be valuing the share slightly towards lower side. This share should be valued towards lower side because it lacks liquidity. Equity share of ABC is an inferior security as compared to the equity shares of XYZ, as it is unlisted. It is less liquid. Its KE may be taken slightly towards higher side, say 0.0909. Value of equity share is equal to EPS upon KE. We take actual EPS rupees 10. We take estimated KE 0.0909. So value of equity share rupees 110. So value of 10,000 shares rupees 11 lakh. Finding the value of listed but not traded debentures of ABC. Annual interest is rupees 90 per debenture. Friends, we assume that the debentures are irredeemable. Why this assumption? Because there is no mention of the maturity period of the debentures. YTM of process security is 9.50%. Let's assume that YTM of ABC is 10%. So to find the value of debentures of ABC, we shall discount the infinite stream of interest, annual interest of rupees 90 at the rate of 10%. Market value of debentures of ABC is equal to present value of all cash flows from this debenture. That is present value of infinite stream of annual cash flow of rupees 90. So it is equal to 90 divided by 1.10 plus 90 divided by 1.10's power 2 and so on up to infinity. And friends, if we solve it, we get rupees 900. So market value of 1000 debentures is equal to rupees 9 lakh. Let's find NAV. Assets. Listed securities are worth rupees 50 million. Unlisted securities are worth rupees 1.10 million. Listed but not traded securities are worth 0.90 million. Cash rupees 3 million. Total assets rupees 55 million. Liabilities 0.10 million. NAV assets minus liabilities divided by number of units. So NAV per unit is rupees 54.90. Question number 5.2. Please refer to the chapter Mutual Funds of the textbook. Please go through the question thoroughly. You may hold your video system and restart after having gone through the question. In this question, we have to calculate the effective yield, that is return of a mutual fund investment. Return is equal to wealth ratio minus 1. Wealth ratio is equal to income from investment during the holding period plus value of investment at the end of the holding period divided by net amount invested in the beginning of the holding period. Number of units purchased 4761.9048. Our investor has invested rupees 50,000. He has purchased the units at the rate of rupees 10.50. So the investor purchased the units equal to the number of units purchased by the investor equal to 4761.9048. Yield for 4 months. The holding period is 4 months. The investment has been made on 1st December 2003 and we are calculating return on 31st March 2004. So up to 31st March 2004, the investment holding period is 4 months. So wealth ratio is equal to income received from the investment, that is rupees 950. This has been received in cash, dividend. This is the value of units at the end of the holding period. We are holding 4761.9048 units. So this is the value on 31st March. So on 31st March 2004, the investor is having cash of rupees 950 and it is holding 4761.9048 units valued at the rate of 10.40. So this is the wealth on 31st March 2004 and net amount invested rupees 50,000. So friends, this is our wealth ratio. This is our wealth ratio. Wealth ratio minus 1 gives us return. So the return is 0.009476. This is the return for 4 months period. So if we are to calculate for 1 year, that is if we are to calculate annual yield, the annual yield will be 4 months return into 12 by 4, that is 0.02842, that is 2.842857%. Question number 5.3. Please refer to the chapter Mutual Funds of the textbook. Please go through the question thoroughly. In this question, our holding period is 1 month. We have to calculate monthly return. We have to calculate return that we earn over 1 month period. So we shall calculate wealth ratio for 1 month. Return would be equal to wealth ratio minus 1. Income received rupee 0.0375. Capital gain dividend received rupee 0.03. Return is equal to wealth ratio minus 1. What is the wealth ratio? Income received during holding period. During the holding period, we have received in cash 0.0375 per unit. We also have received 0.03 per unit in cash. So this is cash in hand. These two incomes have been received in cash. And this is the value of the investment at the end of the month. So this is your wealth at the end of the month. This is the wealth at the end of the month. Our investment was rupees 20. The investor invested rupees 20 and this has grown to this much amount at the end of the month. So this is our wealth ratio. This is our wealth ratio. Wealth ratio minus 1 gives us return. So our return is 0.6375%. Question number 5.4. Please refer to the chapter Mutual Funds of the textbook. In this question, we have to find the return that mutual fund must earn so as to provide 16% to the return to the investor on his investment in the mutual fund. In this question, the investor's plea is that by investing his money, he can earn 16% of his own. We have to find the return that the mutual fund must earn so as to provide 16% return to the investor on his investment in the mutual fund. Let's assume that investor invests rupees 100 in the mutual fund. Let's assume that the investor invests rupees 100 in the mutual fund. So on this investment, the investor shall be expecting a return of rupees 16. The investor shall be expecting a return of rupees 16 on this investment. Let's assume that the investor invests rupees 100 in the mutual fund. The mutual fund gets and invests only 94.50 as its initial expenses amount to 5.50%. I repeat, the mutual fund gets and invests only rupees 94.50 as its initial expenses amount to 5.50%. Mutual fund also incurs recurring expenses like rent of office, salary of mutual fund managers and other staff members. Such expenses amount to 1.50%. Friends, the important point is that this percent is calculated on net investment. Let's assume that the mutual fund earns X% on its investments. So, mutual fund shall be earning X% on 94.50%. The mutual fund shall be earning X% on 94.50 because mutual fund shall be investing 94.50. Investor has invested 100 rupees, but initial expenses of 5.5 are incurred. Mutual fund is able to invest only 94.50. On this, the mutual fund earns X%. These are the recurring expenses of the mutual fund. Recurring expenses are calculated on net amount invested. This should be equal to 16. Solving the equation, we get that X is equal to 18.43. That is, the mutual fund should earn 18.43% on its investments so as to provide 16% return to the investor.